When the Queen begins her final journey to Windsor on Monday, her coffin, held on a gun carriage, will be pulled along in part by 98 Royal Navy sailors in a tradition that dates back to the funeral of Queen Victoria.
Details of the state funeral have now been finalised in a spectacle that will be watched around the world.
It was an event the Queen was personally involved in planning. On Monday, we'll see the full spectacle of her state funeral play out in central London. Carriage. Rehearsals already taking place, timing everything to precision. At 10:35 on Monday morning, the bearer party will begin to move the Queen's coffin from Westminster Hall to the gun carriage. The King, the Queen's children and grandchildren will all walk behind in a procession to Westminster Abbey. At 11 a.m, the funeral service will begin. 11:55, the funeral will end with a 2-minute silence. At 12:15, the procession will leave the Abbey, making its way through central London. And then at 1 o'clock, the coffin will be moved from the gun carriage to the state hearse and driven to Windsor Castle. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the committal service will be held in St George's Chapel, before at 7:30 in the evening a private service will take place, where the Queen will be buried alongside the Duke of Edinburgh in the King George VI Chapel.
I think this is bigger than George VI, bigger than George V, bigger than Victoria. So I wait to be convinced that there will ever have been a bigger event, and truly the biggest collection of world leaders in the 21st century.
Among the military pageantry, the personal. The King and his siblings will again stage a vigil by her coffin on Friday night, this time at Westminster Hall. And her grandchildren will join them to walk in the funeral procession. The Queen's own piper will play the lament at Windsor, as just like her husband, Prince Philip, this time her coffin will be lowered into the vault before privately being buried beside him. For so many decades, it was the Queen and Prince Philip who would welcome dignitaries to this part of London for any big events. Of course, this time it's down to the Queen's children and grandchildren, who you get the sense also really want to make sure that everything we're going to see here on Monday also feels open to everyone. And that's why you'll see representatives from the NHS in the procession and members of the Queen's charities in the congregation. We know they have been comforted by the public reaction. The Queen's daughter-in-law, the Countess of Wessex, saying thank you, along with her husband, Prince Edward, in Manchester. The new Prince and Princess of Wales taking time to travel to Sandringham to spend time with the Queen's staff and the waiting crowds. Their help now is invaluable to the new King, who, having signed off the funeral plans, now has more duties ahead, including a state event at Buckingham Palace on Sunday, hosting all of the world leaders, just 24 hours before he says his own final farewell to his beloved mother. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News, in central London.